Hi, and welcome to episode 6 of Java Tutorials. Today we're going to be talking about objects. And you may have heard that objects are important to Java because Java is an object-based programming language, and that's very true. The first thing to say is what exactly an object is. So, an object is another file in your programming. It's a second file that has variables attached to it. It has methods attached to it. So I think that the easiest way to show you this is to quickly make an object, just to show you that how easy it is to make an object, and what an object is and does. So I'm going to click on this new file button over here, and we're going to want a new Java class. We're going to call this object test. So now you'll notice that the package is the same. Package is still test application as it is over here, and the class is different. What that means is we're still in the same project, but we have we're in a different file of the same folder. Now, in here, this is where we start. This is where everything kind of starts to come together. Certainly, methods and objects are very, very closely related. They're used together all the time. Here, this is when we start to give our object, we're going to give our object some information that it has. So, we're going to give this a X, we're going to give it a Y, we're going to give it a name, why not, string name. So X and Y can represent some location, name can represent, a name. Why not give let's give it an age? So this is starting to look. This is going to be some kind of person object where we have a location, an age, and a name. So now what we do is we make what's called the constructor. So these are different. These variables are different variables that this object will have. So this is some object that has an X, a Y, a name, and an age. So, who knows what it's going to be? Now we're going to make what's called the constructor. So when we make an object, we have this thing called a constructor. And this is a method. This is our first method, but because it's a special kind of method that doesn't need a return type, because the name is the same as the name of the class. If the name is the same as the name of the class that you're in, you actually don't need a return type, which is kind of an exception to the rule for methods. So we need some integer X, some integer Y, some string name, and some integer age. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set X equal to the X that we get here, Y equal to the Y that we get here, name equal to the name that we get here, and the age equal to the age that we get here. So what happens is we can make an object now. We can create an object, and it will have a location. It will have an X, it will have a Y, it will have a name, and it will have an age. So over here, back in our main file, we can actually make one. So we can make an object test object. And to do that, it's similar to making an array. It's very similar to making an array, because arrays are a kind of object. So object test which would be sort of like the type. This is sort of like the type for when you're making a variable. So we want an object test object. Now we're going to name it. So if this seems like it's going to be a kind of person, so we'll name it. We'll give it a name. So Steve equals new object test, and now we need to fill in the parameters here. So we need to fill in the arguments that we've given ourselves. So over here it seems that we need to put in an X, a Y, a name, and an age. So we're going to put that in up here. So we'll give it an X of 30, a Y of 40. Its name will be Steve, and we need to have that in quotes because that's a string, and an age of 27. So what we've done is we've made a object test object named Steve. But we can't do anything with it. We have the object, but we can't do anything. The object doesn't have any kind of abilities or anything like that. So we can start to mess around with that by adding more methods. So we can put in what are called get methods and set methods. And get methods and set methods are very simple methods that are just used to get information from the object and to change information about the object. And I will demo one of the methods for each of those, but then I'm going to skip through the rest of them because they are very boring. So we'll do the get methods. We'll do the get method for X and the set method for X. And I'll do the same thing for, I'll show you string as well because string is not an int, so it might throw you for a loop. So it's the same as making a method. So public, and here's where things get interesting. So this is going to be for the, set method. So we're going to make it so that we can set X to some different thing. Our return type is going to be void. That way, we're not returning anything. We just want to change something. So void does that for us. Void makes it so that we're not expecting anything to be returned from this method. We're expecting the method to do something, but not return anything. So public void set X. And the information that we need here is what do we want to set X to? So int X. So now we can do X equals X. So what this does is when we call this method, when we call set X, so I'll do that here, we name our particular object here, so Steve dot set X, which is the method that we've given. And we can change what the X value is. So we can change, so we initialized it with the X value being 30, but we can change it now. We can change it to the X is 35. And so that's the only method that we have now. But we can also do a get method. So public, and because we do want to return something, we do want to get something from this, we'll have it be int, get X. But we don't need any parameters here because we're just looking to get X, and X is already up here. X is already around. So we just need to return X. Return X. So now you'll see, if I do, I can print this out, Steve.getX, what will happen is it will print out the X coordinate of Steve. So we can actually see how this changes. So I'll put this before here. So it should print out 30 because we're getting the X coordinate, which we've set here as 30. And then we're changing the X coordinate here to 35. And then we're going to print out the X coordinate again. So we should get 30 and 35. And you see that we do. So that's, it's comforting that that's working. So now I'll just quickly do the same thing for the string. So public void set name. And we'll need a string. So string, and we can call it name. String name. And then we simply do name equals name. And you can see that's pretty much the same thing as integers. And it will be the same for getting a name. So public string get name. It will be very similar to the getX method. So return name. And so I'll do the rest of them by myself, and I'm sure that you can handle the rest of them by yourself as well. Okay, so now we have made our object. Our object has all of the abilities right here. So it has a name, it has an age, it has a X, and it has a Y. And now we have the ability to change any of those about the object. So if I were to print out the name of the object, we can do steve.getName. What will happen? We will see that Steve is printed out because Steve is the name of the object. The other thing that's important to note is when you are using a method that is specific to an object, it is not static. So before, when I showed you the simple method that just did addition, that was a static method because it was a method that was a part of the class. You just put numbers in, you get numbers out. But now this method is attached to this object. This is a method that is particular to this object. So to use a method now, you need to use it on an object. We use these methods on the objects, and the syntax for that is the name of the object. And I mean name as in the name of the variable, the variable name of the object, like it is here. Dot, and then whatever the method is. And of course, parentheses because it's a method, so you need to use your parentheses. So that's pretty much it. That gives you all of the abilities to make an object, give the object abilities. And once we do graphics, you'll see that we use objects to do more stuff. And graphics is when things really gets pretty cool. So thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.